you. Thank you, Emily. Thank you, everyone. I think we have in some pictures just to change it a little bit. So who should get to decide how AI impacts our lives? Who should get to decide if and how AI is used and developed and deployed particularly? Let me just say a few words about where I'm coming from engaging with this question, and that's the Data Justice Lab at Cardiff University. Here we see the four co-directors, and the goal of the lab is to explore the implications of the increasing use of data and AI for social justice. And in one of our publications, we define data justice as an analysis of data that pays particular attention to structural inequality, highlighting the unevenness of implications and experiences of data across different groups and communities in society. And Rima already referred to that. And this is important, I think, when we talk about the increasing rollout of data systems, of automation, of algorithmic decision-making, and AI in society, especially when we're talking about the deployment in government and in public services and the public sector, because people are not all affected by this in the same ways. Data is not collected about everyone in the same way to start with. We can see, for example, an enormous effort in many countries to use AI and data analysis to detect benefits fraud, even though other areas, like perhaps tax evasion, for example, is arguably a bigger fraud issue and involves larger sums of money. The implications are not the same for everyone. If my life depends on the payment of social benefits and a machine decides, perhaps on the basis of faulty data, that to end that payment, my survival might be at stake. If I cross a border as a refugee and an asylum seeker, the data-based assessment of whether I'm a true refugee may be a decision over life and death. And this contrasts quite a lot with other kind of productive uses of AI that might enhance our lives. And certainly also there are deep inequalities as to how we can respond and potentially resist as an informed citizen with the opportunities to engage with these questions. I have some possibilities to decide what to do with my with data that is collected about me, what platforms to use, perhaps where to disconnect, perhaps how to engage, also with digital rights campaigns and other types of actors. As a poor person or migrant, I will probably depend much more profoundly, in a way, on services that require intensive data collection and analysis about me, have fewer possibilities to manage and influence that. So coming back to the question, who should get to decide if and how AI is used and deployed, I would say, the people who are most affected need to have a voice. How can we do that? What models do we have? Just briefly, just mentioning a couple here. Classic methods of engaging the public in government decisions are, of course, consultations. And sometimes there are citizen consultations when data systems are installed and deployed, but not actually that often. Our own research at the center, at the Data Justice Lab, showed that there's actually quite a widespread view in local authorities, which is where we focus on, and other parts of government, that consultations are not necessary or not helpful, as people don't have the necessary expertise, or that people simply don't want to be consulted. Further, then, there are deliberative models, such as citizen assemblies, citizen juries, and so on, that allow for a deeper engagement by citizens with the subject, and they've become quite popular in addressing key challenges of our present times, including questions of data and AI deployment. There have been a number of really interesting cases also here in this country, and quite interesting success stories, even though, of course, they're not about decision-making primarily, but about deliberation and norm building. But the idea there is to bring together a representative sample, a cross-section typically of the population, which can be very useful and very democratic in a way, but might not always be the best way to address the specific impacts of data and AI use on vulnerable and marginalized communities. What other methods exist? Well, There are a number, of course, and in policy making, the multi-stakeholder principle has become quite prominent, especially when we talk about internet and media and communications governance, bringing together government, business, and also civil society for creating norms, guidelines, and sometimes also decisions. It does not involve individual citizens. It's not geared towards accurate equal representation of the citizenry, but highlights particular interests and communities and sectors that have a particular stake. And so that might also be useful here in our case to involve organizations and associations addressing the needs of, for example, racialized or impoverished communities. But there have been a lot of criticisms as well about processes that are organized according to multi-stakeholder principles. So we don't probably have the perfect mechanism here. There are a lot more, of course, and several people in the room have been involved in interesting experiments and interesting practices, and we'll come back to that, I'm sure, in some of these debates that we're having later. But what it shows is that these debates exist, and what it shows also is that these debates are, I think, necessary. And there's a need to involve those in the discussions and decisions about the increasing rollout of AI, those who are most affected.